I only work with people that I truly admire. My clients right now there's one podcast, ecom podcast called Limited Supply with Nik Sharma and Moisali. The creators, they love it. They love going to their community and talking with their fans. I feel like this is drop shipping right when it started. It's not very talked about right now, but it's going to be very, very talked about in a couple of years. I've seen so many people just say, I'll just start a Slack community and just bring in my people here and nothing happens. Like they talk for a day and then nothing happens. I was watching another one of your podcasts with Anthony Castro, and he said like a community is like inherently dead. And that's 100% true. One strategy works a lot is taking 1 hour of your day and just checking in with people, like just and not automated messages, not anything like that. Most of the times it's not about the community not having value. The people who I want to work with, most of the time they're on Slack, right? The school is a great community platform. Circle is a great community platform, but they're not household names, right? And you want to have your communities and platforms that are household names. It just makes it easier for everyone, right? So much friction for someone to go like circle.com, log in, go to your communities, check all. It's just too much friction, right? We also create like GPTs for our podcast. So we just download all of the transcripts from all the episodes. We put them in a GPT, and then if you want access to that GPT with curated connection, it's going to be a lot easier. Like a lot easier. It's going to be a lot better. I think that's why I think curated connection is such a great software, because like what we were saying, the definition of community is changing from one directional one directional to multi-directional. And when you're able to enable that at scale, like curated connection does, I think that's when that definition starts to take form, right?
Welcome to Beginner Maps, where we interview operators of top community businesses so that you can replicate the best of what these community builders have already figured out. Today, I am thrilled to have Shin with us. Shin is the founder of Democratize Knowledge, an agency that helps top creators run fully managed private communities. If you are a creator, this episode will give you a detailed insight into what it takes to turn your audience into a community. Shin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nitesh. I'm super excited, super humbled to be here. This is my second podcast I've ever recorded.
It's a pleasure to be the second person to interview you. I think there will be a lot more, and I'm really excited to share with the world more of what you have already figured out. So with that, let me dive into the first question. Shin, talk about your agency a little bit, and particularly about the people who become your clients. Can you share who are these people?
Yeah, absolutely. My agency name is Democratize Knowledge, and being able to build a community where people can share their knowledge, where people can share their mistakes, where people can share their learnings and stuff like that has just been fascinating to me. It's mostly a hack, honestly, for people to come in and meet someone else that they would have never interacted with. I think that's just amazing. I think people they underestimate how much effort it takes, but also they overestimate how much impact it's gonna have in their business and how much that can change. And that's basically what I'm trying to do. Is an agency that you're a content creator, you want to create a very, very good community, you want to monetize your audience, you want to do a lot of things, and we'll just talk, and then I'll do everything for you. I'll do the newsletter, I'll do the events, creating the website, running traffic to the website, repurposing the content and putting it on socials, asking you to make some social posts, to make an Instagram story, to stuff like that. It's just basically everything. The people who I work with, I have two filtering processes. Number one is I only work with people that I truly admire. So my clients right now, they're people who I very, very much admire, and I think they're amazing. And the reason why I do that is there's only so much time in your day. And if you can optimize on working with people that you truly admire, then I think you get the most out of time. It makes more sense on the long term to work with people who you truly admire when you're 24 years old and you don't really have that much of a responsibility with anything, and you're just trying to make a name out of yourself.
Yeah, I just soak up all the knowledge. Yeah,
exactly. And the other one is content creators. I work with podcasts, and I'm looking forward to starting working with some executives, some high-level executives, just creating their community. And yeah, my clients right now there's one podcast, ecom podcast called Limited Supply with Nik Sharma and Moisali. Nik Sharma is the founder of Sharma Brands. They're a big agency that they work with the top players in the ecom and TTC world. And Moisali, he's a founder and CEO of Native. I mean, he's a founder. He sold the company to P&G. And yeah, that's amazing. The other client that I have right now is Elise de Camp. She's the founder of Talkie. So they're a loyalty and membership platform for e-commerce businesses. And they wanted to create a community around everything of retention, email and SMS, like loyalty and memberships, in-person activations, online activations, stuff like that. And there's two other clients that I work with for over a year. They're just starting out their community, their Slack community.
Yes, that sounds amazing. Okay, we can work with these two clients we just said. So both of these are e-commerce. So is like, and you also mentioned that you work with people who you admire. So are you into e-commerce a lot, and that's why you have them as a client?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm very much into e-commerce. I've loved it. Since the pandemic, I started drop shipping and it
Oh, nice.
didn't work out. But I had something, I just fell in love with e-commerce and being able to build a brand just behind your computer. Obviously, there's a lot more things that go into e-commerce, like brand building,
Yeah.
3PLs and logistics and shippings and stuff like that. But just something about e-com and being able to build something just with internet, it's just fascinating to me. And it didn't work out drop shipping, and I tried other things. And right now I'm in a community with like absolutely killers in the e-com game. And just being able to be associated with that, I think is an amazing privilege for me.
I love that. Now, tell me how you got into this. And I know you have a story there because you mentioned it last time with your friend from My First Million. And yeah, that is the story.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it was an accident. I was talking with another community fellow and he told me like best things always happen on accident. And I agree 100%. So I was working at my past company and then I called a friend of mine who's the researcher right now, the lead researcher for the podcast My First Million. He's called Eugenio. We went to high school together and then we just went to college and we just didn't connect that much anymore. And I knew he was doing an agency, a research agency. And I called him and I was like, I want to change things up. Is there an opportunity for me in your agency? And he said, absolutely, there's an opportunity. Come. And it was very, very spontaneous. Like I called him on a Friday and Monday I was already working and I had no idea about anything that I was doing. And so, yeah, he told me like there's several opportunities. There's ghostwriting, there's community. And also I was doing customer support for a e-commerce brand called Everyday Dose at that point. I did that only for like 3 weeks because it's very, very like time consuming and it's very harsh. So big shout out to everyone who's doing customer support. It's a grind. It's a good grind.
Yeah.
And yeah, I started ghostwriting for some founders for some podcasts. And I was doing also the limited supply community. I was operating behind the scenes. And yeah, that's pretty much how I got started. Like as time went on, we started making a lot more things for the community. And right now I think it's a very active community. We have a lot of things going. There's a lot of projects that like on the pipeline. We're going to revamp our website. We're going to start using curated connections. And I think that's going to be a big game changer for the community.
I'm really excited about that. And why community?
My big goal was to get myself into a group of people even though I'm not in the same level as they are, I want to be there and I want them to know me. And I want them to be like, oh yeah, I know who Shin is. That's going to open a lot of opportunities for me, right? And I'm going to learn from them. And if I ever open an e-com store, I have some members in my community that I could confidently go with them and be like, I'm having this problem. Can you help me out with this? And they're going to act as mentors, right? And so that's pretty much it, why I want to do communities. And also, like, I think founders and a lot of people after the pandemic, they feel very lonely. And so being able to just open up a space and create activities where people can meet each other, I think that's a big thing for everyone. Even if they say they don't need a community or they don't want a community, at the end of the day, we all want to feel included and just be part of something, right?
I agree with that. And tell me how, so now, after you have done this, you've done this with a few clients now, and you told me that you have more clients right now in your pipeline than you have the capacity to serve, which is like an amazing spot to be in as a agency business owner. So obviously, it is because you are doing a lot of fantastic work over delivering, and that's why you're getting a lot of this interest. But do you feel there's something inherent about the market or about the people who are coming to you, which is causing this sort of so basically what I'm asking is there an inherent pain in the market that was not being solved that is now being solved by you?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I think this is a big opportunity for people to come into the community space. And I feel like this is drop shipping right when it started. This is it's not very talked about right now, but it's going to be very, very talked about in a couple of years. And whoever is on the wave, riding the wave right now and capitalizing on it, is going to be a big thing in the next couple of years. So yes, of course, there's a big thing. One thing that I feel like is that I think that the definition of community is shifting, and it had to shift at some point. It's a group of people that can connect with each other, right? And so I think it's going to start shifting into like everyone can interact with everyone. If you have a following, you want your followers to interact with your followers. You want you to interact with your followers. You want some friendships to go on from your following, right? And I think that's a thing that's happening.
I love this. This is exactly how I'm feeling because, as you know, like I'm also in this community industry from a software perspective. And this is a nice segue into the next part, which is basically a mini masterclass on how creators with a big audience can create a community. So I'll ask you a few questions about some things that will be first on top of mind for creators. And I know that you have thought a lot about them. You've thought deeply about these things. So yeah, let's just share that knowledge, democratize that knowledge with the listeners right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm gonna once again like hammer on the same topic, but from a different angle, which is basically about the demand for communities. So have you, like, in your opinion, based on what you are seeing in the market, like, is there a particular type of creator who can benefit the most from starting a community?
Yes, we follow the simple formula that a lot of people follow is if you solve a problem and have a loyal following, then you should absolutely have a community, right? And let's say, for example, and I'm going to say this again, like an ecom community, there's a lot of founders that dealing with their meta ads, right? Or they're dealing with TikTok shop and they're dealing with a lot of things. Where are they going to go ask these things, right? Like, let's say my cost per acquisition, and I'm going technical now, but let's say the amount of money it costs for me to acquire one new customer is absolutely through the roof. Like, it's not sustainable at all. And if they have a community where they can just expose their case, and so people are going to come in, hey, can I see your creative? Who are you targeting? Stuff like that. And there's going to start becoming like this, like hub of ideas, right? And that's going to solve a lot more problems than if you watch your YouTube video or if you just go into like some blogs to read about it, right? Because it's going to be more of a personal type of stuff. And yeah, I think if you have a community that truly solves a problem, or you have a lot of experience on your field and you can share that experience, I think that's a great way to start. And also some, like if you have a following that has a natural tendency to stick together, like an emotional like element to your like, community or following, I think that also makes a lot of sense. And let's say, for example, like some kind of mental health community, like if you create mental health content and you have a big following, a loyal following, I think those are a very, like, they have this beautiful like aura to it, where if you have a mental health or a mental support content or following, and you can create a community where people can connect with each other, share their problems, like be with each other when no one else there is, I think that's also a big thing, right? So like in summary is, if you have a loyal following, if you have a big enough following, if you solve a problem, and if your following or your content tends to touch certain emotional some emotional touch points, I think that's like a perfect formula to have a very, very successful community.
Got it. And so I'm gonna let me try to give like 3 examples of maybe like 3 types of creators, and I would love your thoughts on how easy do you think like it is for them to start a community. So let's say we have a Substack newsletter writer who has 30,000 Substack followers, and you know her email gets on an average more than 50% open rates, a weekly email that goes out. So yeah, is she a good client to start a community?
If depends on what the newsletter is about, right? If it adds enough value, then absolutely you should. Like, there's a lot of newsletters, there's a lot of actually communities that started in Substack, right? So it just started as, let's say, like an executive from, I don't know, like Instacart, right? He was the lead product manager of Instacart, and he writes newsletters about product management, about product management and let's say project management and how to make the greatest products, right? Then absolutely, I would absolutely love to make a community for them. I think it obviously has to develop onto more things. let's say you start with a newsletter and then you go to the community, but in the community, there has to be enough value for people to stay. There has to be like weekly workshops, weekly Q&As. There has to be like one-on-one intros. There has to be a newsletter. I mean, there's already a newsletter. But let's say they might consider making a course, right, on product and just putting it on Maven and selling that, right?
Yeah.
Like they also have to create like a social media strategy to just make everything stick together. But yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of potential for that.
Love that. Okay. Now, one major, like this might even be the only big thing that prevents people from starting communities, like in my experience, which is that it's gonna take a lot of time. Like it's not easy. Like it's not like, just, I don't know, starting a newsletter. It's like probably more effort than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, have you found that as well to be true?
Yes. I think it takes a lot of bandwidth, and that's the main thing. And I think some people overestimate it, and some people very hardly underestimate how much time and effort it takes to build a community. Like I've seen so many people just say, I'll just start a Slack community and just bring in my people here, and nothing happens. Like they talk for a day and then nothing happens, right? And I was watching another one of your podcasts with Anthony Castro, and he said like a community is like inherently dead, and that's 100% true. Like, and just look at your Slack, or if you're listening to this, look at your Slack, just look at the sidebar and see how many communities there are, right? It's very hard to keep it alive.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, this is amazing. So have you found there to be any tactics that work really well when it comes to building a community or engaging a community like this for a creator?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. One specific strategy that I think works a lot is one, like taking 1 hour of your day and just checking in with people, like just and not automated messages, not anything like that. Just being able to, like, you go to your DMs and there's a conversation that happened, like, I'm looking for an agency, can you help me find an agency? You send them a list of agencies, and let's say 2 weeks go by, and just you like reaching out and being like, hey, have you been able to like get an agency? Let me know if I can help. Like I can send another one. Like that. Yeah, just the idea of them receiving a message 2 weeks after like the conversation ended, and the community manager being like, hey, like let me know, like, did you solve this? Like I really want to get this solved for you. That's only gonna create this expectation on your community that they're just, I think, subconsciously just gonna want to come back to your community and be like, yeah, they were amazing in this community. They gave me all the resources and stuff like that. And that just gives them enough confidence for them to ask a question in the public channels, right? Because there's like a lot of people don't like answering or asking questions on the public channels. But when there's a community manager by your side all the time, they feel like enough, like confidence to go in a channel and just ask something, right? And that's one of them. Now, the other one that I think not a lot of people or community managers do, but I might be wrong, is like, I think, and it goes with the same thing of not automating everything, but just being able to know who is in your community, even though it's 500 people. Let's say you're in a what, I don't know. I want to have another topic. Like, well, I'll just go with what I know. Let's say you're in the e-com community, right? And there's one person that's absolutely amazing at email marketing, right? And then someone asks a question about email marketing on the general channel, and no one answers, let's say in 24 hours, right? I think it's our responsibility as community managers to have every single question answered, or at least do everything in your power to have every single question answered. And I think, and that goes on to the like non-scalable things to scale. What I mean by that is, you just like, I think there's a big hesitation for community managers to send a message, like a direct message to this person who's great at community, being like, hey, I saw this. Would you mind answering? Would you mind adding your thoughts into this? And most of the time they're going to say yes, because we all want, like, if we're expert at some things, we're always going to want to like help other people. And just, I think like very summarized is just doing non-scalable things that are going to have a big impact on the perception of your community. I think that separates good communities from great communities. Of course, you've got to automate some things, right? But if everything's automated, then it loses that magic.
Yeah, 100%. And you were telling us that you take this off the hands of the creators who are your clients, basically.
Yes.
Now, But I'm assuming that since it like the community is created like essentially around that creator, there needs to be some way the creator is also involved in that community. And I think what they will want is that time commitment from them is minimum.
Yes. Yes.
So what are the key things? Like if I'm a creator and if I'm hiring, say you or maybe somebody else to manage my community, what are the key things that I need to be doing that I should not delegate to anybody else?
Okay. This first, I think where it really makes a difference is with online events or with anything regarding face-to-face interactions on a video. So creators, they of course they have to commit some time into this, right? But the idea of making it for the creator is just to minimize all of the friction, right? So let's say if we do a Q&A, then of course I can just send them a link and be like, hey, there's a Q&A right now with the content creator, join. And that's one way to do it, right? But I wanna make it frictionless for them, as in 1 week before I'll start gathering questions and I'll start RSVPing everyone and just following up with them and sending in emails and like creating this infrastructure around it. And then of course just send the link to the creator and be like, we're starting in 10 minutes. You just get in there, you answer questions, I'll record our edit, I'll be the moderator, I'll do everything for you, and just complete hands off. And of course, it gets to a point like on the other things of course, they need to answer some messages, right? And what I do there is every week I send a weekly report to my clients where there's a section like, hey, like this requires your eyes, right? And I just summarize I summarize like this person is inviting to this podcast, and I link that to the message on Slack. And so they can talk to me and be like, yeah, let's do it. And I'll just go with that member and I'll schedule everything for them. Right. So yeah, of course. And like what I've seen is when you create that for them, like the creators, they love it. They love going to their community and talking with their fans. Like it's just they love it.
Yeah. I love this. I love how you've made your experience like for your clients really hands off, and especially this document, like this weekly thing that you create, where it's like, hey, these are the things that require your eyeballs. You can leave the rest of the community to me, but just answer these 3 things or 5 things and be present at this one event that's happening on this Thursday at 10 a.m. and it's all taken care of.
Yeah.
How do you reduce churn in the paid communities? Because a paid community membership business, like the main challenge there is, members churning out, any month when they feel like they haven't gotten their values worth. So do you have any strategies on managing the churn?
Yeah, I mean, you can use the Daniel from Small Bet strategy that is like a lifetime access. I think that can do the trick. The very philosophical answer is I give more value than how much it costs. Pretty much on specific strategies, like churn is normal. It's always going to happen. People are always going to be. There's always going to be someone who's not into your community, that has a problem with the community, that just doesn't want to stay in your community. That's fine. I think one thing that can happen a lot, or that you can do a lot, is like showing a lot of social proof from other members and making sure people who might be at risk of churning, like showing them how other people are actually getting the value. And I think most of the times it's not about the community not having value. It's about members not being to extract that value, not going to monthly calls, not going to the Q&As, not like checking out the GPT, not using the GPT, and not using the episode notes, like stuff like that. So it's being very vocal about what you get in your community and just constantly reminding people like, hey, we have a website, we have the GPT, we have this monthly calls, like constantly reminding them of everything that goes on in the community, plus some social proof, plus like that churn is absolutely normal. It's always going to happen.
Love that. Okay, let's talk about some tools that you're using. So the first thing that you mentioned is you build your community on Slack. Now, why do you prefer Slack over all of these other community-specific platforms like Circle or the new one, School, or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. First, I want to give a shout out to a domain that I just bought. That if you want to go check it out, it just links to my Twitter. It's Slack Communities, slackcommunities.com, and that leads to my Twitter. So yeah,
wait, you got slackcommunities.com?
Yes, I bought slackcommunities.com. Yeah, so I'm not playing games with the Slack communities. For me, it's the people who I want to work with most of the time they're on Slack, right? They're working, they're doing ecom, they're building something. And most of the times, at least with entrepreneurs from my generation, they're on Slack. And so number one, that's like the my decision on why. But then there's also and it goes hand in hand, like where is your audience? Like if you want to work, if you want to create a community for a gamer influencer, you're not going to do it on Slack. You're going to do it on Discord, right? And so people are going to be on Discord. If you want to work with entrepreneurs, they're probably going to be in Slack. And just as like I try to make a frictionless, contactless service for my clients, you've also got to do it for your members, because the members are who keep your community alive. So if your members are mostly on Discord, you're not going to do a Slack community, right? If your members are mostly on Slack, you're not going to do a Discord community for ecom owners who are just like they have their workspace like right next to your community. Like that's absolutely frictionless. And so you want to make a frictionless process. Now that's more on the Discord and Slack, because I think those are the two household names of communities right now. And then there's Circle, there's School, there's Campfire, there's stuff like that. And I think that's exactly what I said. School is a great community platform. Circle is a great community platform, but they're not household names, right? And you want to have your communities and platforms that are household names. It just makes it easier for everyone, right? If I were to move my community and from limited supply to Circle, a lot of people would come, and I'm 100% sure about that. But interaction would go down, engagement would go down, members would go down, and it would be just a friction, so much friction for someone to go like circle.com, log in, go to your communities, check all. It's just too much friction, right? And yeah, another thing with the Circle, like that's one thing with the Circle School and stuff like that not a lot of people are using it. And also I think the infrastructure around it isn't the best. I think the best infrastructure, Discord has it, but it's not like by far from Slack. But I'm not gonna choose a platform based on that when Slack like has basically everything. Yes, I think, I don't know if you use WhatsApp or Telegram, stuff like that. And those like there's like communities. There's like a tab right now where you can like there's communities, right? And then in Instagram there's also communities, and on Twitter there's also communities, and that's like a very big dilemma where Twitter is more of a household name than Discord or Link or Slack, right? But the infrastructure in the Twitter communities isn't the best, and the infrastructure doesn't get the objective that I'm trying to get for my clients and for my members, which is connecting everyone with everyone. Everyone can connect with each other, right? And that's something you cannot do on like, of course you can do it on WhatsApp. You can send a message to this person, but there's like certain, and I think more of emotional like barriers for people where they are more comfortable sending a DM on Slack than sending a DM on WhatsApp, right? It just feels like it takes your chat.
Yeah, I agree. And I like to say that this is like the general principle of meet your members where they are. So if your members are on Slack already, it makes sense to just use Slack. Slack is definitely a better choice than Discord, and also a better choice than Circle and all of these other community specific tools that nobody knows, and they have to build a habit of going to. But Slack is also, like, while we're saying this, I think we would be remiss to not mention that Slack is also not really built for communities. So it's built for, businesses and teams. And so there are a few things around it like that you don't really get. So can you talk about like what are the most painful things for you you're using Slack? And yeah,
absolutely. Number one is it's very expensive, and you have to pay for it. Right. So right now in the limited supply Slack community, there's like we're 4,700 members with, I think around 200,000 messages have been sent, but you cannot see more than 3 months, like a history of 3 months before. Right. And that's a big pain for us. Just because like there's so much value before those 3 months, right? And we just have like 5% of the 100% of the conversations that have happened. And I think that's a big problem. Now, there are some certain softwares that are right now building like tools to like host all of your messages in a dedicated library. And I think that's going to be a big thing. And then let's say another thing is, so it's paid, and it's like, that's the big thing. You cannot huddle. You cannot have calls inside of the community once you go to the free version. Then Another thing is being able to have admin on who's leaving, who's joining, and then if it's a paid community, how can I kick them out? And then how can I like keep like this, like keep control of everything that's happening on the community. And like there's certain other softwares or Circle that just it's all integrated. But at the end of the day, it's like a community manager. It's your job to make it as frictionless as possible. And if your members, even though if they don't really see it, let's say they don't see like how much work is behind it. I prefer like my members not knowing how much goes behind and having a meh experience than making my job a lot easier for them to be like, what a shitty experience in this community.
Yeah. I like this. So for the case where you're asking you want to make sure that only the members, like only the paying members are having access to the community. Like, do you just have a process for removing, kicking people out like every so often and seeing who?
Yeah. It's manual, but
Okay.
Basically it's every week we go to our Airtable form and we just check like who's in, who's not, who's paid, who's not. Right. So and it's very, very time consuming, but like I'd rather do that and hire a VA for $600 a month to check that rather than changing platforms.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, and let's talk about some other tools. So you're running live events, I'm assuming on Zoom.
Yes.
Okay. And what about the event registration experience? Do you use Luma?
Yes. So my tech stack for live events is Luma, Zoom, Magic, CapCut, and YouTube. And I'll explain each one very fast. Luma is RSVP, pretty much like you just have your emails, just register, and that's gonna add it to your calendar, right? Pretty straightforward. Then Zoom, I think it's more straightforward. It's just where you host it, we record it, we do all your stuff. Then Magic, and I truly recommend, and a big shout out to Ramon and Blaine for doing an absolutely crazy job with that platform. I use it every day and for all of my events, which is basically you just take the audio, you put it in this platform, it gives you automatically the timestamps of every subject that has been talked in your podcast. Then it gives you titles, it gives you Twitter threads, it gives you blog posts, it writes newsletters, it can create images, a lot of stuff you can do with Magic. You can also share that link. So big shout out to them, good friends of mine, and CapCut for video editing, and YouTube where we host our platforms, our videos, content, events, stuff like that.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. I'm going to link to all of these in the show notes. So if you're listening and you want to check it out, just go to the show notes. And what do you use as a central repository where members can learn about all the different things that come with the community apart from, let's say, chat and events?
Yeah. So right now it depends on what community, with what community that I have, with different communities, I'm using different platforms, but we're going to move everything into Webflow. We used to use Notion and Super. I think that's how it's Super or Super. It just basically creates a website out of your Notion. It works, but I just don't like the aesthetic of it. And to create a world-class service, I just want to have the best of the best with design. And also just because since it's a CMS, it's a lot easier to input new things. It's a lot easier to take out new things. It's easier to gather analytics. It's easier to just integrate some stuff. If you want to integrate the podcast, the embed the podcast, I cannot do that in Notion. I can do that. It's just, I'm just going to do everything to have the most seamless experience for the members.
Okay, so members are going to be able to log into this Webflow website and see everything.
Yes.
Nice.
And it's going to be it's going to be paywalled, right? So there's stuff you let's say for some podcast, we create the notes for each episode. And then if they just want to come back to an episode instead of listening to the whole episode, then you can just go to that specific episode, right? We also create GPTs for our podcast. So we just download all of the transcripts from all the episodes. We put them in a GPT, and then if you want access to that GPT, it's paywalled, right? Stuff like that. And then job opportunities. I'm not planning on paywalling job opportunities, but then and then let's say, for example, if you want to access the library of 190,000 messages, that's paywalled, right? Yeah. But if you want to see all of our events that we've hosted, if you want to see blogs that we've written, if you want to see what software discounts you have, that's free. You can go, you can check it out, you can have access to certain things, but also if you want full access, then you have to pay.
Interesting. And then I'm gonna double click on something that you said. So does it work to create a GPT out of all the podcast transcripts? Like, is it actually intelligent?
Yes, it doesn't, because the thing is, we don't create GPTs to ask like very complex questions, as in, can you help me solve this problem? It's more of I remember Nick talked about this software that does this, but I just cannot remember which episode it was in and the name of the thing. And so you just ask that question, and it's like, oh yeah, it was season 5, episode 8. These are the tools he talked about, and this is what they do, and they just solve like problems that fast.
Okay, I love that. Is there any other way you're using AI in your work?
Yes, we also do something called sub posts. So every day we send basically a summary of what happened in the community that day for people that just don't want to go to each like channel. We just take the best threads and we say, this is what we talked about. This is a summary. Click here if you want to read it. And we do that every day, and that uses a lot of AI.
Love it. Okay.
And also automations, that's AI, stuff like that.
Okay, cool. And now let's get to the final segment of this interview where I talk about your, more about your process and your thoughts for creating these communities. So the first thing is, what keeps you up at night when it comes to managing a community? I'm not talking about the agency business as a whole, but I'm gonna take let's take any one particular community, and I want you to think about the central problem that you're always thinking about.
Like when you're on social media, everybody says like you're competing for attention, right? It's always like you're competing for attention, you're competing for attention, you're competing for attention. And with communities, it's harder. It's harder to compete for that attention, just because like it's not like on social media. You're just not scrolling and seeing what's going on in the communities. It's like for people to go into the community and read your stuff, it takes a lot of. That's what keeps me up at night. Like, how can I win the attention of people with my community? Like, how can I make sure that people want to go to my community first before they want to go to any other communities? Yeah, and I think that's events, and I think that's like the personalized experience, and I think that's like making sure everyone feels super comfortable in the community. That's the big thing. The good thing is that when you're able to achieve it, you have their full attention, and I think that's one good thing about communities. In social media, you see a post, it gets your attention, and then you scroll. When you're in a community, it's all about you. They're 100% invested in your community and your message and your events. So yeah, pretty much.
I like that. And you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that community is when it's not just like one directional, like the members talking to the creator, but it's when members are talking to each other and making friends with each other. Yeah. Is there anything that you do to enable this member to member connection and to have more of these connections?
Yes. First, I think it starts with how you onboard your members. So the way we onboard our members, they have to fill out a form, and they answer questions such as like what's the industry you're working in, like how much revenue you have right now, like where do you live, what are your main challenges, stuff like that. And when we have all of this information, then we know who is who and who we can connect with each other, right? And so we can create like master classes of groups for like 8 to 10 people and just have them have monthly calls. But those 8 people are going to be specifically designed to help each other, that they're in the same stage, they're like in a similar industry, stuff like that, right? And I think this is a big shout out to you. I think with curated connection, it's going to be a lot easier, like a lot easier. It's going to be a lot better. Because I think that's why I think curated connection is such a great software, because like what we were saying, the definition of community is changing from one directional or just one directional to multi-directional. And when you're able to enable that at scale, like curated connection does, I think that's when that definition starts to take form, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. These nice words about curated connections.
I think it's amazing. I think there's a lot more capabilities and things and stuff as you grow, that it's gonna become better. But I have never seen something like that, and I think it's gonna be very successful.
Love it. Thank you. I hope you're true.
I'm serious.
Love it. Okay, Shin, one final question for you. So,
Yes.
what other creator communities do you draw inspiration from?
Yes. I think, and this is not a Slack community, but more of like a community, the definition or like the spiritual or the like, not so technical side of Slack communities. I think My First Million does an absolutely crazy job on creating community. It's fascinating the fact that I wanted to do a Slack community for them. And what I found out was that they don't need a community manager. Like people in Austin, they're doing their own things by themselves. And then people in Los Angeles are doing the things by themselves. And then people in San Francisco are doing the things by themselves. They don't need, I mean, I think there's a platform that enables people to host this My First Million events. But
Yeah.
just the fact that like the community of My First Million is so strong that people raise their hands by themselves and they're like, I want to host something and I want to meet these people. And this is going to be very biased, obviously, but I think that limited supply community is one of the best communities, if not the best community of e-commerce out there.
I'm a My First Million fan myself, so makes sense why we were able to vibe and get on this podcast
Yes.
recording.
Yes.
And and yeah, I love that, you said limited supply, and I think that just goes to say about the impact that you're having, that you feel confident enough to say this, and yeah, that I love this.
Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot.
Can you just tell us what do you offer to creators in your agency, and like maybe detail of exactly the things that you're doing in your agency to help
Yeah,
creators
absolutely.
build a community, without worrying about it?
Yes. Well, of course, we offer communities and stuff like that. But the way I love to see it is we offer a new income stream for content creators while also building and harnessing more loyal and strong community for them. What we do is basically hands off, everything off from you. Of course, when we're onboarding, there's certain like work that needs to happen on like let's say brainstorming on what the channels you want your Slack community to be, like your newsletter, what's the perspective you want to take, like those basic things, like how do you want to vet members, like is there any specific criteria of people who we don't want to accept that we do want to accept, like understanding like their tone, their brand, stuff like that. But once everything is set up, it's all hands off. So we create the weekly newsletter, we create a website, we create your social media strategy, we take care of your monetization, we take care of events, we take care of like courses, we take care of everything around your community. And so basically the only thing we need to have is basically like 2-3 hours a week on join this call, read, and this includes like you reading our weekly report and just like maybe giving us some feedback and stuff like that. But we're always going to keep like our clients on the loop on what's happening, how much revenue they're getting, like what's the churn rate, like everything. It's a completely like holistic service for them. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
I love this. And so you mentioned, okay, you said that you do everything, like including, courses, events, communities, and all of it. So the client has to offer just 3 hours a week of their time for this.
Yes. And also I think that because there's a lot of hesitation around it, the way we work is either you can pay a monthly fee, that it really depends on how many members, like stuff like that, or if you wanted to have it completely like risk free, we just take a cut of like we do the work and we only take a cut of the revenue you're making.
That's an interesting model. So you basically help these creators start paid community memberships. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
I love this. Okay. So sounds like a fantastic model, Shin. And I think every creator, would be lucky to work with you if they can get on your, waiting list and get the opportunity to book you for running their community. And I think you're doing a fantastic job there. Where should the creators go to, just actually fill out a form and, express interest?
Yes. Perfect. Right now, you can go to 2 different links. Hopefully, when the episode goes out, I'm going to have my card website. And so you can go either to democratizeknowledge.com and that's going to take you to my website, or you can go to slackcommunities.com. That takes you to my Twitter, and you can just send me a DM there.
Right. Awesome. Perfect. Yeah. And I think your website will be out by the time this episode goes out. So you can also check out the show notes, and it will have a link to Shin's agency business right at the top of it.
Amazing. Thank you so much.